That's where it's going to be.
Hey, Ben.
Alrighty. What's going on?
Hey, thank you so much for joining us. I'm gonna kind of see and play around with this for just a sec. I'm gonna see if looks like the Facebook feed has shown up that we're live. That's awesome. All right. Well, if anyone's out there, bear with us as Ben and I are brand new to the BeLive.tv experience. But Ben, I wanted to say thank you for taking the time today. How's the weather in Southern California?
It's great, as always. I can't complain. I think like light showers today. So,
Oh my gosh.
perfect.
As I'm
Everybody's all freezing in 12-degree weather. And here I am. Like, it's cool. It's, 70.
I don't like
So
you
I,
right
I,
now.
I cannot complain.
I'm staring out my window and there's at least 5 inches of snow everywhere.
Wow.
So I'm jealous to say the least. And I haven't seen the sun in probably 3 months. So I'm completely jealous of your life in Southern California.
Rightfully so.
All right. Well, here was my plan. I was gonna essentially get it started. I'm gonna read just a little bit of background for anyone who's out there who ends up watching this that doesn't know who you are. I think we'll have a lot of people that already do know who you are, but give a little introduction if you're all right with that.
That's fine.
All right. Well, welcome so much, everyone, to this special live edition of the Breaking Student Debt podcast. My name is Will, and I am joined with me today by the incredible one and only Dr. Ben Fung. He is the COO of Updoc Media. He also is an avid blogger. I was just reading through Ben's, I guess you'd say, background or resume, and it's off the chart, Ben. You are blogging as Daddy in the Raw right now. You just started Relate in 8, which I want to get into a little bit later about mindset and success, as well
Cool.
as you blog for Updoc Media. You have your Doctor of Physical Therapy degree, as well as an MBA from Michigan.
Hmm.
Anything else, Ben? You're currently essentially dominating half of the internet. Is there anywhere else you're writing or providing content for?
There probably a whole bunch. I just had an article be released through the APTA's Student Assembly Pulse blog on establishing your personal brand through social media. I guess blog for a lot of different channels, and I love doing that because it's all about sharing helpful content to people that need it. And so, I think one big area in my life that I need to work on is dancing because I'm an embarrassment at weddings.
Something tells me you do all right at dancing, Ben.
I'm okay.
Yeah. Well, we
I'm
got
all
plenty
right.
of time before you make it to Dancing with the Stars, so we'll have to get you
That'll
some.
be it.
Does your wife like to dance?
My wife likes to dance a little bit, but she doesn't like the limelight per se. So that's where the conflict is.
Okay.
Stop it! I'm not with them.
She likes to dance, just not when you're next to her.
Yeah, no, I'm a
Yeah.
little nutty. That's what dancing is. Right? It's having fun. It's physical expression of your own goofiness.
Absolutely. It's one of the purest forms of physical movement and like expressing your joy and happiness in life.
Absolutely.
It also can show how, uncoordinated some of us are and or, are trying not to be. Well, Ben, I
Yeah,
wanted to ask
like the
you,
lower.
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh no, it's like the lower half of me is okay. You just don't. I really need to obey. The Will Smith. Keep your hands right here and stay right here because I have goofy arms. But go ahead. We need to get on topic before this just becomes like a podcast about dancing.
Oh man, I mean, I think I'm gonna have to reach out to you after this and get you scheduled for the dancing episode.
Hey, I'm down.
Hey, for all of our professional, want to be dancers out there looking to improve their abilities, we'll have Dr. Ben Fung on at another time to discuss dancing. But Ben, I wanted to ask you, I wanted to start out with what you had mentioned just a second ago about how you've been doing work about doing social media branding for yourself. And
Mhm.
I was really curious, before actually we dive into details, I wanted to ask you, what has been your personal situation with student loan debt? I know you've gone for your Doctor of Physical Therapy degree, and then you also got your MBA, two
Mhm.
things that I guess I inherently don't associate as being cheap. Um, have you personally had any experience having student loan debt of your own?
I had in the beginning, and we I guess just out of a combination of the way I was raised and a bit of cultural influence, a lot of me and my urges have always been to live within my means, and that I think it's funny because I think it's general wisdom. It's just not very well adhered to in our millennial age, and so because of that, I think the wider scope of student debt, there's a struggle there because once you start graduating and you start making money's fun. And so you kind of want to spend it too to reward yourself. I think part of that discipline of living within your means, that's a big part of shaving away, if not defeating very early, the student debt before it kind of stays with you for, the better part of a decade or more.
Yeah. What were some of the things that helped you stay disciplined while you were in school and right after school that allowed you to start to hack away at that debt?
Food. I didn't have much of it during school, and even after graduating. I mean, this is just real talk, right? I mean, we all joke about the ramen diet, but I mean, we all joke about it because we've all been there. The ramen diet's real. And, there's been more than a couple of times post-grad that I was on the ramen diet. My wife even called it the birdseed diet because I just wasn't eating that much. But sometimes that's what you have to do. I find that, when I looked at my personal finances, it was interesting. Food actually isn't the secret. Like we categorized, like from the moment we got married, all of our finances into several general categories of spending, whether it was fixed expenses or variable expenses. Now with fixed expenses, you can't change that. So we decided, it is what it is unless we want to, uproot ourselves and move to Alaska. So that part we can't help. But variable expenses, just like in business, those are modifiable, and those you can do any number of things with and be able to contain them or be flexible with them when you need to be. Like when the holiday season comes around and everybody spends a lot of money, eats a lot of food, buys a lot of gifts. And so we discovered, at least for our own household, that food wasn't killing us. Neither were a lot of the variable stuff that's associated with like travel and whatnot. What was really killing us was what we categorized as miscellaneous. And miscellaneous was essentially things that we didn't need per se to live off of. So not the food, not the toilet paper, not the hot water, like your bare bones kind of things, not included in that. And so that could be a combination of eating out at, higher category restaurants versus like a takeout, or, like what's popular here is, coastal cuisine because we're in San Diego. So it's kind of a lighter, type of Mexican food that's a little healthier, but still fairly affordable. And so when we categorize all those things that didn't belong there, that singularly defined how much we were spending month to month. And if we could contain that, then we could, contain our expenditures and live within our means.
Yeah. I think that's a huge point because I know for me personally, that's an area where I struggle with still is the wanting to eat out quite a bit. And I think probably just being a single male in my 20s, it should be a priority. Just cooking sometimes falls by the wayside. Tim Ferriss once said, he goes, don't plan on being a good cook if you're a male in your 20s because the odds are it just doesn't end up happening. But he also, or what I was going to say is that I was going to ask you, so one, obviously you didn't stop, going to restaurants or taking your wife out on dates or anything like that. You just became more reasonable or sensible in terms of the pricing options. And then what I was going to also ask is, when you say you were tracking that, would you literally write out what you were doing or track receipts, or how would you do that?
Yeah, so I'm kind of old school, and it's kind of oxymoronic because I'm on so many digital platforms, but I have to credit my wife with that because she's the one that, looks it up and goes, you should do this. Like, okay, I guess I'm signing on Twitter now. Like that's kind of, where, our dynamic is as a family. But I would literally track it. And honestly, only for the last couple of, I'd say last handful of probably 12 to 18 months, we went 100% digital. But I did track receipts, like 7-8 years ago, we would save receipts, and I would log them every single month on an Excel spreadsheet. I still have those spreadsheets like in my hard drive, and
Wow.
And I would categorize them, I would trend them, and we actually have a graph of our month expenditures, year-to-year comparisons. And that's actually when we stopped, is I compared like 4 years of data, and we realized like, okay, it's in our nature now we just don't spend any differently. And so because of that, I felt comfortable going to a digital, receipts platform and not tracking OCD like. But we would log everything, and I would analyze for trends. And I mean, this is a lot of my MBA and my engineering background speaking. I was like, I'm so like, where's the numbers? Where's the opportunity? And I really want, where can I save some pennies? Because that turns into a meal later, that kind of stuff. And it was ridiculously helpful because for the longest time, we thought that eating out was the sin, right? That was like, if you eat out, you will die because next month there'll be no money for anything. And now you're going to have, accrue credit card debt and all this crazy stuff. But we found out, like, if we, say we ate out extra times in the week for the month, we would end up spending money there, but not buying groceries, and like we like to eat tastier foods in general. And I just got a pop-up comment. That's funny. Sorry. Good luck studying.
That's my classmate. We're studying for boards right now, and he's been a big fan of yours. I know he was actually watching your live video recently that we were talking about with salary negotiations. So Jeff, cool. Shout out to you, and welcome to watching Dr. Ben Fung.
So anyways, I'll wrap that all up. As long as you were in that lower category, so let's talk Yelp. But basically, if you weren't at $2 signs and up, if you're buying $1 takeout or restaurant food, for us, it would just even out. And we tested it, like, just for fun. Like, okay, we have to eat out more, see what happens. And then the next month we were paying the same amount because groceries can cost quite a bit of money, especially if you're not eating the exact same food every single day. Like as a, even as a grad student, that was fine for me. I could eat the exact same pasta, vegetable beef stew for 8 days in a row, and I could survive that way. But I don't want to impose that on a married lifestyle. So, I mean, that day may or may not come depending on what happens in life. But because of that, it was so interesting that just elucidated everything. And I'm sure it's different for every single family lifestyle, every household, or even just single finance lifestyle. But I think it's nice just to take a look at even 3, 4, 5 months of actual just sparsed out data and see where you are, spending a whole bunch of money on that you may not be aware of, or you might take a look at it and go, wow, I need to cut that out. Or, wow, this isn't as expensive as I think it is. I can trade it out for something else. Yeah.
It sounds like the theme is becoming more aware and actually taking that active step of tracking. And just to kind of review here, that at the end of every month, you would put into an Excel sheet all of the receipts that you had kept from the month. Is that right?
That is correct.
Wow.
And then I would have a whole bag full of them to shred.
It probably felt good to shred, though, after you put them, all in the Excel sheet and had it all nicely laid out.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, we would actually make a day out of it. We would shred all these things and put them in these, paper Trader Joe's bags. And then we would go to the beach and use like the coals of a leftover bonfire and just incinerate everything. Kind of became like a ritual, which is fun.
Hey, that's an important part. You have to make things fun. Otherwise, you won't stick to it. We know that from therapeutic exercise and physical therapy. So, well, I was going to ask you then, Ben, kind of moving or continuing with this theme of your own personal finances. You have shifted from working in a clinic as a physical therapist, and now you're an entrepreneur of all types of sorts. You are writing about being a dad. You're also writing about being a physical therapist, about social media, about success coaching as well. Are you? When did you feel like you needed to make a step away from just working in the clinic and then going down this route of, let's say, entrepreneurship?
Wow, pretty early actually. So that story for me came around when I'm getting a little feedback, so I'm all distracted. 1 second.
No, take your time.
Okay, we're good. I just heard myself and I was like, it's weird. I just get so distracted. I'm very, I'm very sensory like that. But it all started for me probably October of 2010, give or take. So my story is a little interesting because what ended up happening for me was I was trying to get into the usual acute care ortho sports med type track as a career path as a physical therapist. But the only thing available in my area was acute care. And so I kind of looked back on it and I was, I actually really loved my acute care rotation. Let's give it a shot. I really enjoyed it. In fact, I enjoyed it the most. I just had the least, quote, interest out of it mentally, as a mind frame. But, when I look back, I was like, actually it was the funnest rotation for me. So I was like, let's give this a shot. And I ended up loving it. Acute care to this day is my clinical passion. I love that environment because I feel there's so much potential for physical therapists to make huge changes in healthcare. That can be a whole nother podcast. But what ended up happening was I got identified by the marketing and PR department of my health system that I was working for at the time. And they wanted me to represent kind of their PT poster boy stuff that year. And it turned up to a huge thing. And all of a sudden, as a new grad, I was speaking at a national event on women's health, no less, which, I kind of was like, guys, gal, but they still wanted me, which was a huge honor and privilege. And that's probably what started it all, was I realized I wanted more than day-to-day clinic in, clinic out. Not that that's bad. Don't get me wrong. But I think there's a mindset shift that we're already seeing in that physical therapists can practice beyond the clinical setting and beyond what's right in front of us on our hands or within the clinic walls or hospital walls. And that's where so much potential is, especially when it comes to promoting our profession. As that turned through, I started going on TV interviews and, meeting local news anchors, and just that whole journey became much more of a PR and marketing type adventure. Very much not so the acute care physical therapist. And I got addicted. I just man, this is amazing. I can spread this knowledge I've learned. And it doesn't have to be uber scientific. It can just be, can you touch your toes? No, let's try this, and then, oh, wow, you're touching your toes. And that became magic to the public, so to speak. And I approached my hospital CEO, who's this amazing guy, not to mention an award-winning CEO of his own rank. He basically told me, you need to be more than a physical therapist. And he didn't say that as an insult. He wanted me to dig deeper and recognize that as a physical therapist, we need to think beyond just the clinical, because healthcare is so much more than clinical care. And when I made that connection, it blew my mind. And that actually sent me down this whole MBA trail and whatnot. So fairly early on, to answer your question, I knew I wanted to be involved at deeper levels and more complex levels than clinical care, or at least clinical care solely. I still love it, and I definitely miss the clinical care, but I also feel very impassioned and purposed in what I'm doing now.
Wow, what a great story! And I mean, personally, I feel like I can relate to that a lot. I'm excited to jump into a clinic and start a new job, but I think ultimately I have that same sort of feeling already, or ambition that you've just expressed. How much do you think that played a role? This might be a two-part question. How much do you think that played a role in you knocking down your debt quicker? And then do you think that, say, a new grad, any healthcare profession, could be nursing, PT, medical student, should start to develop a personal brand or website or whatever we want to call it that can allow for, say, anything, consulting services? It could be just providing information that creates opportunities in order to help increase their financial earnings?
I'll work that two-part question backwards. But yes and yes. Yes and yes. But I think, well, actually it might make sense if my thought process is backwards, just to how I addressed it. But it played a huge role. And I'll answer it backwards by saying how, in that by recognizing that I wanted more, I knew I needed to save up to do that. Even before I started the MBA, just the common sense, I was thinking, well, if I'm going off on my own, that means I need to assume the risk. And that's essentially why businesses are formed as entities, right? Whether it's LLCs or corporations, they're formed because the financial and legal risk really is spread across the organization or entity, not across the individuals that comprise it. And so when a business goes under, it's not attached to somebody's actual financial status, like their equity or their home, that kind of stuff. It's just attached to the LLC. And so when the LLC, fails, poof, bankruptcy, it's gone, but the families get to keep their homes and so on and so forth. And that's the ultimate, explanation of why business entities exist. But to do that, business entities also need to take a bigger cut out of the earning potential of their employees, because they're splitting the risk as well as the reward across the entity versus the individuals. Recognizing that, I was like, wow, I got to save up if I'm going to do anything. I was very fortunate because the system I was working for had tremendous retirement benefits. Matching at the highest market rates I've ever seen, which, is a way to go. I know I talk a lot about getting paid cash up front, and which I think we'll probably talk about on this podcast, in terms of drilling away some debt. But there is a way of doing it backwards, in the sense that if you can get, money now, like in the form of Roth type programs, and other people can speak better to that, because that's where my knowledge of that ends. It's still your money. Yeah. It's still your money, and you can use it later. So that's really kind of how I did it. And speaking to building your personal brand is huge. That's why we're going to jump on the APTA's Student Assembly chat later this month. I've talked about it numerous times. I have many blog posts on it. I'm writing one now, actually, on how to build a following. And I'm not the only voice promoting this, because essentially this is the only way you can get recognized should you want to go out on your own later, whether it's a lean startup where you're doing consulting, or you're working out of a gym, where you're doing a subcontract or a sublease with another firm, or you just want to take the dive and go. You have to have a following now. And it doesn't mean you need to have the largest following. You just need a footprint, right? Because right now, when it comes to being found and being seen as a true expert, you just have to be searchable, findable with good content that's consistent.
Absolutely. And I think I might have heard it from you, or maybe it was another physical therapist that I follow closely, who said, I'm sure it's a commonly shared thing, that, marketing isn't about selling yourself. Marketing is just making people aware that you exist and that you have something to offer. And, it's hard for someone to see value in you if they don't know you exist. Right. And so
definitely getting a little static now. I'm afraid it might be coming from my end.
Well, that's okay. I can hear you loud and clear. Am I coming through okay?
That's I think it might be my connection, because you sound kind of like the Borg right now, very like multi-voice.
That's actually intentional. I'm trying to do that.
Perfect. Okay, it's clearing up.
Okay.
Oh gosh, it's that whole that whole pyramid of needs, right? Wi-Fi right now is the greatest human need.
I know Maslow somewhere is like,
someone's have Wi-Fi. Yes.
Well, I wanted to ask. So I was kind of gonna towards the latter half of this. I really wanted to break into strategy. I think if anyone is out there who also saw your live chat, Facebook live video. God, was that on Friday, Thursday or Friday? Maybe it was over the weekend, where you talked about salary.
It was over it was within the last week. I broadcasted it from Updoc Media's Facebook page, and that thing blew up. I didn't even realize how many people were really on it. It's just like, hi guys.
Well, I wanted to kind of just take a brief moment. We don't have to go into that length of detail, because I can put a link to that on the website, and people can search that video out itself, because he did a phenomenal job breaking down essentially what new grads should be doing and looking for. But I wanted to ask, in your opinion, as healthcare students, what type of room do we have to negotiate leaving school? I guess the point of the podcast is it's not about making money, but allowing people to recognize where they can financially improve. I think starting out is one place that can make a difference. And I just wanted to get your opinion on that.
The start point is huge. I mean, I didn't recognize how important the start point was until I got into management, and I had, the transparency to look into numbers and realize that, all my life, meager 3 years before I got promoted, I was being lowballed. And I had no clue. Nobody did, and I think there's a general mentality, especially in healthcare, a little less in other industries, but especially in healthcare. If you're a new grad, there's this aura of you're new and generally worthless. And I hate it. Yeah. And it's not just physical therapy. It's all of our rehab therapist allies, speech and OT. It's nursing, it's physicians, it's everyone. Because there's this old idea that experience brings value. And while experience is valuable, I see experience very much the same way I see time. Time itself isn't valuable. Time is a vehicle for value. And I see experience in the very same way. Experience on its own isn't valuable, but quality experience as a vehicle for value does bring a lot of value. And where this ties into students and new grads getting a good start and chipping away at their financial debt, or just getting in the, flipping the mindset, just being in a good financial place, because everybody's going to have student debt, but just being in a good financial place, you have to start with a strong point. And most places, whether you laterally transfer or move up the chain, they see your first pay grade as kind of your anchor. And we know this from sales strategies that, if we're negotiating across the table, the first number, good or bad, that's shouted tends to be the anchor of the entire discussion. It's very difficult to uproot that. And so despite a lot of our healthcare background telling us, okay, we have no place to negotiate, let the manager make the first offer. Really what sales psychology and marketing has taught us is you need to define that for yourself first. And it's a little bold, but if you have the right number in mind, it's just business, and nobody's going to take offense at it. Nobody's going to go, I can't believe you offered, this, or your number is this. And that's terrible. Good day, sir. Goodbye. I'm never talking to you again. Like, that doesn't happen. So it's hugely important because, and it's not that, let's take it on two different veins. So say you want to stay with the same company for, say, 5 or 6 years. If you get a low ball to start and they're doing progressive salary increases, to beat down inflation as well as to reward your loyalty, that compounding factor over 5 or 6 years is massive. If you get $1 or $2 more to the hour to start, that can mean a huge amount, a whole bunch more 5, 6 years down the line versus not having those $1 or $2. And then when it comes to starting off on your own, I think one of the biggest mistakes that fresh grad startup anybody's do is they undervalue themselves. I was talking with a lawyer about 6 months ago, and he went off on his own right after school, did okay. And then when he joined another firm, he realized he was lowballing himself. Like his retainer, pricing should have been way higher, and he probably would have done a lot better in the market if his prices were higher, because there is that psychological buying element that consumers will see. Like, why are you the value lawyer? Like, why are you the low value provider attorney? Because I'm not sure I want that, because I might lose the case. So there is that psychology in play, and there is a balance to be found. Yeah,
that's great. What do you think that applies across all different settings in, let's say, the healthcare world, in terms of, I'm thinking physical therapy standpoint, but outpatient versus inpatient? Is everywhere as flexible? Or are you going to see more flexibility in different settings?
You'll see more flexibility in A, different settings, and B, different types of corporate structures. And Will Butler, I saw your comment. Yes, you can, there's much more value than just the cash that you paid out. I think you jumped on right after we talked about how I funded a lot of this stuff that I'm doing right now through savvy retirement funds that I take out early. But that's one way to do it. But the corporate type, or the corporation or organization type, is huge when it comes to flexibility. A lot of nonprofits and older corporations have basically zero wiggle room, because they have set out in their bylaws or in their corporate policies and procedures, if you fit certain categories, then you get paid certain amounts, period, or at least certain window of amounts. And so you can't really negotiate past those windows, and you can't get creative. Like, you can't go up to a corporate manager and say, hey, how about we talk about a tiered value-based system where I get paid a certain cut and then get certain bonuses based on certain productions and so on and so forth, or I draw against commission. Like, you can't go to a corporate manager and say that, because they'll just go, yeah, we don't do that. We pay you by the hour, because that's how this business does. Versus a private practitioner, or private practice, or like a small chain of private practices, where the owners have built everything from the ground up. And to them, it's a very logical business. If you make business sense in what you are proposing, they'll say yes, especially if you weave in risk mitigation on their part. And that should be balanced out with reward incentives on your part as the prospective candidate. And those settings have huge wiggle rooms. And in California, I remember a new grad telling me one private practice immediately offered him something like $84,000 out of the gate with all sorts of crazy benefits. Another private practice didn't want to offer the benefits, but offered the cash at $62 an hour. $62 an hour is 120 something thousand dollars a year. You can pay for your own insurance with that. You can create your own, retirement plans with the excess, so long as you're not spending all that stuff. So the corporate setting is important, but the healthcare setting is also important. You'll probably not see as much wiggle room in outpatient and in acute care and in neuro and in peds. But where you will see it is in the SNF, which may or may not be a stable market in the next couple of years, and you'll see a lot of wiggle room in home health. But if I had to name two settings, kind of in your garden variety across the board, private practice, small outpatient, and home health has the largest wiggle room. And I mean, the wiggle room is something like 20% of the median pay.
Wow. That's incredible. So just to review it, it seems like small outpatient private practices and home health are going to be the two settings, at least looking at maybe the rehab world, where you might have the biggest wiggle room to make adjustments in your starting salary.
Definitely.
Okay.
And I mean, with home health, new grads are, easily paid $90K plus. Six figures is not a weird number for home health physical therapists, regardless of experience to make. And then outpatient, private practice clinics, especially if they're trying to grow, especially in like the one clinic that's like, it should be two clinics, but they haven't hit that yet. Those places will definitely negotiate with you. And then some of the more savvier small practice clinics, and a lot of them are coming out of the woodwork right now because they recognize that, I think I wrote this on today's release of the PT Job Market Pulse, that PT is very soon going to pivot over to a point where there's no PTs to be found. Like there's physical therapists, the demand for them is going to be so big that there will be essentially no unemployment in our space because there's just too many people to serve. And so pretty soon, these companies and these private practices and organizations are going to bid. They are just going to bid crazy, even at a loss, just to get the market served.
Wow. And Will Butler, hey, Will, thanks for joining us. He definitely agrees with you. He says home health and outpatient for sure. Best places for wiggle room. I'm assuming that's what he's referencing to, but good to have you here, Will. And Ben, I wanted to kind of carry from that. How have you transferred your social media presence into bringing in extra income and extra capital for yourself as one, a healthcare provider, but then also through your other ventures, I should say?
In general, I would say it's kind of one and the same. I mean, I'm non-clinical now, which is weird to say because I didn't think I would be non-clinical until I was, my manual therapy had destroyed every joint in my body. That's what they all sell you, right? Yeah, try this for 20 years. Your hand will be all like mangled and you'll still be able to nip them. You'll be fine. So regardless of that, I think it's one and the same insofar that, social media now is the gold standard of how we engage with each other as communities, as individuals, as, business to business, business to consumer, consumer to business, whatever the channel or type of communication is, it's just social media now. It's just the digital way of doing things. Every platform has its own etiquette and its own, central audience base and how things are used, but it's kind of all the same. And it's all about growing an audience, or at least serving that audience, however big or small it might be, and bringing them value by giving them valuable content, whatever that might be. Now, content can be courses, content can be just, what you put out on your social media, be it videos or whatnot, and content can very well be your services and products. When it comes to transferring that to, say, clinical care, that's kind of the very business of what I'm in a very major respect, is driving business to clinics by telling their brand story through content pieces. And it could be anything, it could be, here's your ebook for back pain, or, this is here's a micro documentary about our brand and how people can engage with that at a deeper level than, we're the best. Because of course I would want to see the best clinician. So as a consumer, that doesn't matter. But if I connect with that clinician before I see them, then you've won.
Awesome. That's a great insight. If you have time, I have just two quick more questions. They're quick in my mind. Maybe they'll be more in depth. But
we'll go until my Wi-Fi busts.
Well, one I wanted to ask, if you were, let's just say, um, I was one of your students, you're a professor, or I'm an understudy of Dr. Ben Fung. What are one or two strategies you would suggest that I implement right away that could help down the road increase income that will help me bring down my student debt?
The first thing I would do, I just thought of two, so now I'm trying to say both. The first thing I would do is build a following, and so that means whether it's you're getting a free website, through WordPress or through Blogger or whatever, or paying for one because you want to invest in it because really you should see a website as growing a digital house. So you need both the plot of land as well as a strong foundation to build that house. Otherwise, you have to repeatedly tear it up and down and buy more land, that kind of stuff. For those of you that have gone through that, you know what I mean. And so build yourself a following, or at least a footprint of some sort, and put out consistent content, however consistent means to you, whatever you have time for. It doesn't have to be daily. It can be monthly, it can be quarterly, whatever. But so long as you have something like that, you will be searchable and you will be sociable. So that's step one. And that will pay dividends down the line, because even to this day, like stuff from my classic blog at drbenfung.org gets plenty of hits all the time. And I get reached out for even my classic kettlebell content on kettlebelltherapy.com that I haven't added to in probably 4 years. And I still get requests, for my research and my insight on how to use kettlebells, in a rehab format. So that's number one. The second one is, oh yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna ask a real quick follow-up, because I think what I hear a lot of, and I felt this way for a really long time, is that, what do you say to someone who follows that up with, yeah, I don't know anything about computers, or also there's a common, I don't feel like I have anything to say, or who's going to want to listen to me? What would you say to that person?
You'd be surprised, because you're probably thinking of nobody wants to listen to me, as in none of my colleagues want to listen to me. And that might be true, and that's okay, because your audience shouldn't be your colleagues. I think especially in science and health sciences, certainly in healthcare, we're so obsessed, just so obsessed with impressing our colleagues. You look at almost any physical therapy website out there, and you can tell it's designed to impress colleagues, right? It's very technological and terminological, and has all sorts of things that would otherwise impress, another physical therapist or another clinician of some sort, or referral source, right? It'll impress a physician because we do laser here or something. But it isn't designed to speak to hear the listening voice character of the consumer. And that should be your audience. That should be everybody's audience. Unless you have a business model that's speaking to your colleagues, you really should be speaking to the consumer. And there's plenty of people that want to hear about it. And quite honestly, like, I'll share this story, and this is a story I always latch on to. I was voluntold at one point to go to a health fair at the YMCA, and so voluntold that I didn't have any resources, as in no tablecloth for this rotting wood of table that was set up in the YMCA, no trifold or easel, nothing. Like I had a printout sheet on a dot matrix that said spine screen, because that's all we had in the medical records room for me to just to take really quickly and jump in my car and go to the YMCA. And it was like a 4-hour health fair. You know how the Y does that from like 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Everybody goes in at like 30-minute or 1-hour intervals, and they allow for like 50 to 75 people in the gym at a time, so it doesn't become like a zoo. And for those intervals at a time, I essentially commanded the entire gym. People were sitting on the bleachers listening to me shout, because all I was doing was very clinical skills 1 stuff, like range of motion. And like I said, can you touch your toes? Can you do a back bend? Can you kneel and stay there? Can you get off the ground? Very simple functional mobility and very range of motion oriented things, very kinesiological stuff that blows the minds of the public, because nobody looks at them that way. There's not a single physician I have met that has done a physical beyond a very, very rudimentary gross motor screen. And even then, typically it doesn't include any kind of ambulation. It's usually upper extremity stuff. And so it's not to knock them. It's just not their area of focus, right? Most medical schools offer somewhere between 10 hours to a week of musculoskeletal in their curriculum. And the healthcare market doesn't expect them to do anything in the musculoskeletal world. That's us. We just need to be out there with it. And so, answering your question, who's going to want to listen? Everyone, just not your colleagues. And if you can be okay with that, and you can get a little bit of a thick skin with that, you're going to have a huge audience.
Yeah, that's great. I'll let you continue your second point. I think that's a common barrier for people, and so I really appreciate your insight into that.
And quite honestly, like the website building, I don't know, technology stuff. I mean, you have to mess around with it. You have to make mistakes, and that's okay. And if you really want to, like, quote, do it right, there's plenty of people in the PT community that will either do it for free, or they will do it through as a paid service. And it's okay, because it's a business investment. I mean, that's why I spend good money on certain domains that some I never use so far, because I'm waiting for the right time. Again, it's like a plot of land. Yep. Now, the second point in terms of chipping away at early financial situations is get a good earning stream early on. This goes back to my bartending days. Like, I remember in bartending school, the bar master was saying, there's plenty of people that came out of his school that basically hopped on a car ride to Vegas and didn't come back for 5 years. And they paid off everything that they needed to and had enough money to come back, become a bar manager, a restaurant manager, or open up their own situation and be perfectly fine. And that's something, to be said in terms of healthcare is, say you have $100,000 in debt. I don't know the numbers right off the bat, but either yourself or Will Butler, if you're still on here, you probably know. But if I'm making six figures, I can pretty much pay that off very quickly. I've even had discussions with a new grad that is about to pay it off within the first 2 years of graduation, because they're hustling in home health, working, awesome. 40 to 60 hours a week. Yeah. But you're paying that stuff off. You're going to be in the positive, and now you're going to have this huge bankroll that you can open up your own operation on if you want to. Yeah.
That's awesome. So maybe looking into a home health option right away, in terms of, as we talked about earlier, that small outpatient clinic or the home health that gives you that wiggle room that might be, even if it's not your dream area, maybe for a year or two, in terms of really helping cut down on that debt. Sounds like you're saying that might be a good option to look into.
I really do think it is. I mean, ultimately we have bills to pay, and home health hasn't been very well exposed, right? I mean, like, I feel home health in terms of physical therapy is this mystery area. Like, it's home health. Absolutely. You're in a car somewhere in the boonies and nobody talks about it. And everybody seems to have this like aversion and fear as a new grad to home health, even from like the professor standpoint. Oh, no. You want some more experience before you go on home health. Well, do you know what it looks like? Because most people don't. Most people don't know that certain agencies and certain companies gives you more than enough support. Like my experience with home health proper, because my experience with home health was first as a subcontractor. Like I actually managed a subcontract out of CCRC as a director of rehab. But when I moved into home health as an actual employee of the corporation, they gave me like 4 to 6 weeks of preceptorship where I followed a physical therapist that had been in home health for a couple of years, and I tailed the person like I was a student. Like I looked back around, I was like, wow, I feel like I need to log these hours in or something, and make sure my CPI is good. Like I was surprised by the amount of nurturing that this company gave me. And they paid me by an hourly equivalent to what they expected me to earn in the year, which was really quite handsome. And they gave me so much support. They gave me my own iPad. They gave me my own medical bag. They gave me all the equipment I needed, with more resources than I knew what to do with. Like I honestly had all these different books and these handbooks and pamphlets and these links to webinars that I never got a chance to look through because they already covered all the problems. I didn't have to.
Yeah. Wow. That's something I'm definitely going to look into. I'm gonna look a little bit deeper into the home health setting after that. So it's good to hear that you can find support. I think you're absolutely right, and that's what I hear from friends, family who have experienced home health. That you should have some experience before you go and do it. But if you find a place that's nurturing and willing to guide you and give you some instruction, it sounds like a win-win opportunity. So I think that's something that I'll definitely look into. The last thing that I wanted to ask you, I know we've kept you for a while, Ben, is you started this new project called Relate 8. And I was just really curious first, what was the background behind this? What was the inspiration for starting this project?
So Relate 8 has been on my mind and my heart for a long time. I mean, like we're talking like 16, 18 months, possibly more. Wow. The idea came to me around the same time that we formed Up Doc Media. And it merges kind of my personal voice with a little bit of my professional voice as somebody who understands the job market at large, not so much just the physical therapy or healthcare job market, but it also pulls in some of the stuff I wanted to speak on in my Daddy in the Raw dad blog, about just relationships and parenting. But then also mixes in a little bit of my kind of failed launch millennial Asian blog because there's some cultural things, some ethnic things that I wanted to discuss because there's not that much airtime for the Asian and Pacific Island culture, not until recently, that is, and so
Right.
I wanted to kind of speak to that because, in my heritage on the Asian side of me, doctors and highly educated professionals are considered the top of the food chain. But there's certain myths that need to be popped about that. And there's certain realities that need to be discussed that may or may not be the best path for everybody. And the best path could be many different things. One of the jokes I really like to talk about is music. Asian people love music as a fine art. And there's that stereotype, right? If there's an Asian kid, he probably is excellent or she is excellent at math, a string-based musical instrument or the piano, and they are going to become wildly successful because they're academically focused. And that's not necessarily true. And the funny part is those that become wildly successful at the fine art in instruments or in music or performing arts, God forbid that they take that into a professional level. I actually got I was a Royal Schools certified or whatever. Like I was a traditionally classically trained pianist for most of my growing years. But at a cultural level across the board isn't seen as a viable option because musicians don't make music. Why are you doing it? Oh, because it's good for your college application. So there's a lot of that stuff that I wanted to discuss and, just insights about how we relate and connect with each other, whether it's collegial or parental or spousal or platonic, whatever it is. There's been numerous requests off of different private channels for me to start like a podcast on that and how we relate with each other, and it can improve these levels of connectivity for our own benefit and for the benefit of the people that we connect with. And so ultimately I looked at myself and said, as auditory as I am, I just don't have the technical finesse nor patience to deal with iTunes. So I didn't want to do a podcast. And so I thought, well, what's also comparable would have been kind of a YouTube channel situation. And so we ultimately decided, hey, let's do it off of YouTube and we'll make it kind of a regular series and just see what happens to it. And, we dropped I dropped the episode, I think this morning on, success mindset, and I think that relates really much with what we're talking about now is your success in life has everything to do with the mindset that you frame for yourself. And when it comes to, say, negotiating salary to get a nice, solid pay up front so that your successive pays, when you laterally transfer, you get promoted, it stays high. That's a big, big deal. Because if you go into a job interview and you're negotiating and you just don't believe that you're worth anything or that you could even be allowed to, that it's socially acceptable for you to ask for $80, $90, $100,000 for the year as a new grad, then you won't ask for it. Worse than that, you'll carry yourself in a way that's very meek and shy and just uncomfortable and not confident. And that comes across as not as valuable as another candidate. So not only will you maybe lose that job, but you won't successfully negotiate anything because you come across as cowering and as somebody that just isn't sure of themselves, versus if you go into it knowing that, hey, there's plenty of new grads out there making six figures. There's plenty of new grads making 90K plus. There's plenty of new guys making 80K plus with benefits, with mentorship, with all these different things, and they're not working for a mill. Then this is our new normal. And I can feel confident and comfortable and go in there with a framework in my mind that says, this is the new norm. And I'm worth this. And I'm going to confidently and respectfully ask for it with a dose of humility and a dollop of thank yous, right? And if the person across the table says, yes, you're in, awesome, because I just got what I feel I'm valued for. If they say no, I say thank you, because this is business, and for any number of reasons, they said no. And so I'll just move on to the next thing. And I've done that myself. Once I hit six figures, I promised myself, if I was going to work for another, if I was going to work for another man, so it'd be the man, the corporation, the entity, another business, if I was an employee of another business, I would never say yes to anything less than what I've made at this point. Because for years it took me to get to a six-figure situation as a physical therapist. And I think we're grossly underpaid as a profession. And that's another, probably an entire podcast for itself, like with like 100 episodes. But I promised myself every single negotiation table I would go to, I would not settle for anything less than $100,000 in total value. That was just my number. I'm worth it. And so I would talk to hiring managers that would say, okay, let me see what I can do. And other times they would say, I would love to, but I can tell you right now, my regional director will not say yes. And in fact, it would kind of be an insult to my team because there are people here that have been working for 15 years, loyal to this company, that have yet to make that mark. And I completely respect and understand that because that's how the job market exists. Certain organizations are paid, they pay their employees certain ways. Other organizations do it differently. And so for those that we had to part ways, we did so amicably, professionally. It's just business, right? If it's not a deal, it's not a deal. You move on. Yeah. For those that say yes, then we shake hands and go down that dating path a little further to make sure it's the right match. And then you go from there. So yeah, that's kind of a circle around to what Relate Nate is, and it's kind of it's a peek into my mind and to my approach in life and how we can, I feel that connecting with people and relating with people is ultimately the secret sauce of success in life. And it's the significance that we bring to other people's lives that define our success. And if you can really understand how you connect with yourselves, then you can start to understand how you connect with other people. And then it just virally, in the best of ways, just kind of transcends all aspects of your life. And you start to see things so differently, and, like one of the examples I gave was in relationships. I bet anybody that's watching this or listening to this, you have been in a relationship, you're in one, or you're looking for one, right? And most relationships don't, quote, work out because when it does, well, then you're with the right person. And a lot of them don't work out because you don't see the value in yourself. And you start to think, well, I deserve this, or, I don't deserve a 10, that whole thing with guys, right? She's a 10. I'm a 7. I can't ever go for a 10. Well, you're never going to if you don't see yourself that way or worthy of it, right? Sure. Same with, like the female's perspective is, like if you feel detached from much of your childhood because there were some struggles with your parental relationships, you don't need to beat yourself up about it, and you don't need to feel like you're worthless, and you need to validate for yourself with real life experiences that you are worth it. And that becomes a positive cycle rather than a negative cycle, because so much in life is learning from failures. But if we see failures as just validation that we're worthless, then we're going to start acting that way. And we're just going to start teaching other people to treat us that way, versus if we see failures as lessons, as non-final processes of learning, then we're going to start to see repetitive successes that come along the way and start to project ourselves that way when we teach people to treat us as successes.
Man, Ben, you just summed up, gosh, I don't know, the last 2 years of growth I feel like I've been undergoing, and that's so powerful though. And I think you're absolutely right. I think that I wish we taught more. I wish we were taught more, or at least guided more, on how to understand ourselves through higher education. I know that's not their job, but I think that in terms of being a successful, whatever it is, whatever you want to do to be successful, you have to understand yourself, and then being able to build relationships. And there are effective strategies of building relationships. It's not just, do you have it or do you not? Do you connect with people or do you not? But there are actually strategies that you can try to implement in life to build up. And I think that's a great place to end. I can't recommend Relate and Aid enough, and I'll definitely put links to that on the website, as well as links to all of the 9 million websites that Ben has and has yet to release. So if you're out there, check those out. Ben, where else can we find you? Where can people find you on social media? Where can they track you on your websites?
You know what? I'll send everybody to drbenfung.com. I've recently revived it. It was kind of a 2-part play. It's been there. drbenfung.com has been there forever, and I actually accidentally killed it when I tried to tinker around with this old website builder from the 90s, and that particular web hoster actually stopped that particular building service. And so when I tried to change it, it actually erased all my content, which wasn't a big deal because it was like this really old, nasty GeoCities looking website. And so I wanted to revive it for myself. And so we had our web developer at UpDoc Media build out like a single landing page. And so if you go to drbenfung.com, it not only has the link to my channel Relate Nate, but at the bottom, and I think at the top as well, there's all of my social channels. So we're talking my YouTube, my Facebook, UpDoc Media, of course, is linked there to the blog, and you can search anything else that you need from there. My Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter, all that stuff. So just go to drbenfung.com, and all my social channels are there. I think everything that I do exists there in some fashion or another.
Okay. I think it does too. I'm pretty sure as I was reading it earlier, I noticed you can get to all of your social media at the top and the bottom of the page. And Ben, it's always a pleasure, man. It's always so great to connect with you and get your perspective on things. I think it's
a privilege for me.
We desperately need more of this kind of real talk, and not just from a financial standpoint, but about personal growth. And I think, you're a testament to how personal growth leads to financial growth, leads to overall fulfillment in life. And I think at the bottom line is that's what we're all looking for, or hopefully that's what we're all looking for and value. So Ben, I can't thank you enough for being on the podcast today. And I hope you get to keep enjoying that beautiful weather while we all freeze to death in the snow.
I hope so too.
Hey,
and I hope you guys freeze a little less.
I hope so too. And anyone who's out there listening, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this episode or listen to this episode of the Breaking Student Debt podcast. Check us out on the website, breakingstudentdebt.weebly.com. There will probably become an official .com here soon. But because we're poor and in debt, we decided to go with the free version. And check us out on Twitter at breakingsdebt.com, as well as Facebook, Breaking Student Debt Podcast. So as always, guys, keep climbing out of that hole and have a great day.